Everybody, what's up and welcome back to Eggs. It's me, Ryan, and Mike here for an hour, just sit down and visit. We don't have a guest scheduled today, so we decided to take the afternoon and visit with one another. There's been a lot of happenings over the course of our life. I guess it doesn't really feel like a lot, but maybe as we talk, we can net out some things.
Well, we haven't done this for 3 months now.
It's been forever. So, and then we also thought we'd take advantage of the opportunity and just play around with some different settings. You can see, I mean, in case it's not obvious, I'm sitting in front of a green screen right now just for giggles. I'm sitting down, which I don't normally do. Normally we use real lights and all that kind of stuff. And
he's the one that's all professional, and I'm the one that usually is lounging in a chair and doing my thing. Well, thanks for keeping it professional, Ryan. And
well, I do my best. Well, it's funny because the biggest thing or the worst part is that my green screen is like not that wide, right? It's more tall than it is wide. And so to get it to fit, it's like right up against me. Like I'm like belly to my desk, and then the green screen is like there. It's like there's no space.
Don't move.
So I can't turn, I can't rotate, I can't reach anything.
You're going to lean back in your chair and all hell's going to break loose.
Yeah. My background's going to fall off. People are going to think it's, the apocalypse or something. It's going to go wild. That's great. Anyway, but it's an opportunity to just play around a little bit because we don't have a guest on the phone. And so we don't run the risk of, embarrassing ourselves in front of a guest, just you, our loving audience. Yeah. So anyway, what's up, Mike? I guess I could kick off with a little bit of Nashville stories. We just got back from Nashville. We did spring break with the kiddos. I'd never been there before, but we took a family trip out to Nashville this year. And it's funny because I really like the city. And this is one of the things, right? I'm currently based in Salt Lake City, but everywhere, and maybe it's just kind of a grass is always greener thing, but everywhere else we go, we're like, oh my God, we should move here. Like, let's go. And, so same thing in Nashville. We got to Nashville. It's an amazing city, really cool place. And so same thing, of course, let's go. Well, one of the biggest tragedies for anybody who hasn't been there, I guess it's a gift and a tragedy, depending on who you are, is that country music runs to the core of that city. Yeah. And I have a long-standing, I don't like country stance, right? Yeah, so this is something I've held on to.
Try being a DJ,
right?
And having that stance, because I have that stance. I'll do 90s classic country, maybe early 2000s. Anything newer than that, I don't know anything about it, and I don't want to know anything about it.
Right. Well, and I'm like so many.
I've heard there's this guy named Morgan Wallen that's pretty popular, but other than that, I have no clue.
Yeah, apparently he's got some hit that's crossover on the rock station. My wife showed it to me the other day because she was super annoyed, and that they're playing country music on the pop channel.
When I was working for the radio station, there was two songs that were like that.
They're
getting by the way, I don't work there anymore.
So ever since I think Lil Nas X, that Old Time Road song he put out, for people who don't know, the original hack was that he stuck it on the country music charts instead of in the rap or hip hop. Yeah. And so it immediately trended because there just wasn't that much competition. And so it immediately shot to the top. That resulted in like a Billy Ray Cyrus collaboration and some other things. And then that song went on to be like the biggest song in the world, unfortunately for all of us. Yeah. But I think, obviously there's been crossover country to rock kind of songs over the years, but it does seem like they're really fiddling with that line now. There's not a clear.
It would drive me nuts when that song would come on. I would actually, when I was doing the music rotations, I would schedule it for early at like 5 a.m. so someone else had to listen to it and not me.
Yeah, no, that would be my jam. So here's the problem, right? So I've been married to my wife for a long time, like 20 something years, maybe 20. And it's been long held that my sister-in-law and brother-in-law are big country fans, and we are not. And we've taken every opportunity for the prior 20 years to shit on their music taste and tell them how bad it is. And, and every time they're like, oh, check out this new song, so-and-so put out this new song, check it out. It's like, oh, dog shit, we just, constantly shitting on country music. So here's my concern with moving to Nashville. So they have got country music everywhere, right? To the core. They bleed country music there. And, and even like while we were there, the neighborhood our Airbnb was in had 10 recording studios in it. Within half a mile of our house, there's 10 recording studios, and some of them are like the old House of Blues. I can't remember who owns it now, but it was the House of Blues station. or a recording studio. And, so, I mean, a lot of famous acts come through this neighborhood to come record. And, but to Mike's point, one thing I am also, as it comes to music anyway, is a live music guy. I really love live music, and I can appreciate a great musician, great singer, great whatever, and like can be instantly wooed by like a great voice, great musician, great whatever, right? And so my concern is I can see a world where I might be hanging out in some honky tonk in Nashville, and some super talented musician hits some chord, sings some song, seems whatever. And then I go, you know what? It's not so bad. This person's pretty good. Like I could get into this, and start following along, slippery slope. Now, all of a sudden I have to admit to my sister-in-law, I like a country song, and it's just not worth it. Like I'm not willing to put up with it. So unfortunately, I think Nashville's out for us, even though, my youngest son, we took him to a Nashville Predators hockey game while we were there. Yeah. And now he's fully committed to playing hockey. And
nice.
So
I could see him doing that, actually.
Yeah, I think it could actually be a great fit for him. The one part I think he neglected to understand was the whole skating part. And so I think it seems really, really obvious that you can just jump into a sport and start playing a sport, but it is less obvious that, oh, wait, I have to do it on skates. Yeah. And so he's going to start skating lessons in May, and we'll see how he does. But if he sticks it out and he actually gets through it, I think he could actually be a good little hockey player.
Yeah, so I can see him having the drive to
so
a couple people.
Yeah, so in his case, it's country music be damned. He's all about the hockey. He wants to play for the Preds. He loves the Predators. He's all jacked to go back to Nashville to watch the Predators. So anyway, that was a fun experience. So other fun thing or interesting thing, and again, country music themed since we're in Nashville. We were cruising down to the hockey stadium because the boys just wanted to get into the team store and go take a look and get some gear. And so we're cruising downtown, no cones, no nothing. And we get on this street, and some woman in a horse, like on a horse, is just blocking traffic. So, and this is down for people who know Nashville or don't know Nashville, I guess. They've got this little strip of road called on Broadway, just I guess must be the east of the hockey stadium, which is sort of like, I don't know, their strip, right? Like it's about 4 or 5 blocks or something of just wall to wall country music, country bars, country whatever. And coming down the street is this woman on this horse surrounded by an entourage, a couple cops, all this stuff, but just holding up traffic. Like there's no cones, like they're not rerouting anybody. Yeah, just no, out of the blue. And there's camera crew around this person or whatever. We're trying to figure it out. And they end up at some point, the woman comes down our street. So like where we were stopped in traffic, she comes down the road by us, and we were traveling with my mother, and she immediately recognized her and went, "Oh my God, that's Tanya Tucker." And so Tanya Tucker, I guess, is a very famous country singer, and she, is sort of famous for starting really young and growing up. So she's just like Nashville royalty. And we had no idea, but we were way underimpressed by her appearance and the traffic it created. So unfortunately, we didn't take the time to really get into it, but it was kind of cool, but a very Nashville thing to happen in our first time Nashville downtown. So
Tony Tucker just randomly showing up on a horse,
pulls up on horseback. Yeah. So anyway, so it was a lot of fun. We checked out the Titan Stadium and went over. My youngest son got a football jersey over there. And so that was pretty cool. And there's, it's a very walkable city downtown. So there's a lot of cool stuff to walk around to. We went through the Johnny Cash Museum, which our kids didn't totally get. And, again, that we're not big country fans, but something about Johnny Cash, he's always been that cool guy, right? Like he's somehow cooler country than everybody else. And so I had a proud papa moment, though, in the Johnny Cash Museum, because, like I say, we don't listen to the music. I mean, we know Johnny Cash's hits and stuff, but we're not like big country people. And so we're walking through this place, and this old timer, really old dude, probably 80s, 90s, walks up to my youngest son, goes, "Oh, cool to see the young kids here hanging out at the museum. It's like, what's your favorite Johnny Cash song?" Immediately I shit my pants, because I'm like, oh God, this kid's going to be like, I have no idea. Like, who's a Johnny Cash? What's Johnny Cash? Right. And I'm going to look like asshole of the year because my son doesn't even know who he's there to see. Right. And he busts out with Ring of Fire.
Nice.
And I could not have been more proud for that boy.
Was that Ethan or Lucas?
This was Lucas, the younger one. And nice. I was like, nice pull, buddy. Great job. And then it occurred to me, we had actually there's a wall in the museum where it shows pictures of all the people who had done collaborations with him or covered his songs or whatever. And there was a picture of this dude with like neck tattoos and all this stuff on there. And there are all these old timers, trying to figure out who it was. And I was like, I think that's Mike Ness from Social Distortion, who covered Ring of Fire. And it occurred to me that Lucas knows Ring of Fire because he's heard it 9,000 times by Social Distortion. I don't know I don't know if he's ever heard it by Johnny Cash. And so
that's great.
Anyway, but it was pretty funny. So, but I got away with one. And so I was pretty happy about that.
Did you play it for him later?
Yeah. We played a couple songs from him, Folsom Prison, some of the other, popular ones.
Nice. Yeah. I remember your wife giving me a bunch of crap for playing, I think it was an Elvis song on one of my mixes.
Yeah, that sounds right. She's not an Elvis fan. She's pretty unrelenting, but of course now all our boys, right? Both our boys, at Christmas, they just can't help themselves from putting Elvis on every country mix, right? So they've got
just to mess with her.
Blue Christmas or whatever. There's always Elvis on the mix. So every time he comes in, the boys will start just kind of like hound dogging, moo, blue Christmas, this whole thing, and it's like, and my wife just loses her mind, but it's pretty funny.
What am I doing?
Yeah. So, but if she had never told the kids she hated him, she'd have been fine. The problem is, she showed her belly, and now the kids are eating her alive.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So anyway, but yeah, Nashville is cool and a great city. I'd love to go back again. Maybe, when a couple of these other sports are in season. Our Airbnb was also pretty near their soccer stadium, and, we're big MLS fans and stuff. So that was pretty cool. And, the food was pretty incredible and all that stuff. We had all the sort of staple Nashville stuff, barbecue and hot chicken and all that kind of stuff. And so, great. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, it was, it's been a long time since we went to a city and did like touristy stuff, but with the kids, it was cool. And we went out to like Andrew Jackson's mansion, or they call it the Hermitage. So we went out to Andrew Jackson's Hermitage. I think they actually say, I think it's French. I think it should be Hermitage, but anyway, we went out there and walked the grounds and everything. It was really cool. The boys love all that sort of history stuff. And, they've got Civil War things going on down there. So it was pretty cool. And I guess the only other thing that I might touch on is that we went and did a quick little walk through Vanderbilt University there. Nice. Our oldest son, he's only 16. But he's starting to learn about the football recruiting process because he's hoping to play football in college. And we've been doing university tours over the last few weeks here in Utah. And he works with a lineman coach who has really great connections with all the local colleges. And we have pretty decent universities around here. So he's toured Utah State, Weber State, BYU. And then this week we have University of Utah. So that's like the one that they're, all the boys are jacked to go to. So it's like, the big one here. Right. Yeah. So anyway, so everybody's jacked for that. But while we were out in Nashville, we were like, let's email the coaches. Maybe we zip out to Knoxville and go to University of Tennessee or let's go to Vanderbilt or wherever. And Vanderbilt's in Nashville. So we were able to kind of go walk through there and check it out. But so anyway, so it's kind of cool. But we're like kind of, even though it's a little bit early, we're kind of in college mode with them. So we're starting to look around at different universities, and he's thinking about, trying to get on someplace and go play college and go to school. So, or go play football in college and go to school. So
that's right. How was Vanderbilt?
Vanderbilt's cool, man. It's beautiful. And, it's a very Vanderbilt, like the guy Vanderbilt kind of place, right? I mean, everything looks like these giant stone castles and stuff. I mean, it's a really cool place. And like I've seen other like Vanderbilt buildings and stuff. And in fact, I think somewhere out there, North Carolina or someplace, or South Carolina, there's a Vanderbilt mansion you can go tour that kind of looks like this, just big spires and lots of stonework and stuff. It's really cool. And in fact, right across the street from there is a scale replica of the Greek Parthenon.
Wow.
In just Nashville, which seems weird. But I guess it was there for like a World's Fair or something like that. And I guess the people of Nashville liked it so much they wanted to keep it. So because they just built it for the event, but ended up keeping it. I couldn't imagine having built it for an event though. Like it's all stone and everything. It's like a legit Parthenon. And so pretty wild.
Like the London Bridge that they moved to some small podunk town in
Lake Havasu.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on it actually. Yeah, no, it's and so yeah, when my grandparents retired, they would go to Havasu in the winter, and so yeah, we've been over to the London Bridge over there. But yeah, no, so anyway, it's kind of cool. But anyway, it was cool to see all that stuff, and we had a good time. I think it'd be really fun to go back to Nashville with adults.
Yeah.
because we couldn't really do the bar scene. We couldn't really walk around, check stuff out. It's cool though. They do let kids into those bars until 7. So
Okay.
you could go and have lunch or whatever with your kids down there and kind of let them get exposed a little bit to the vibe, which is cool. But after 7, they shut it down and it's grown up party. And it's very Vegas like. Apparently they took the crown from Vegas for bachelorette parties. So
Oh,
apparently it's
really?
like the hottest place in the city or in the country for bachelorette parties now. So anyway, there's a lot of that. In fact, I think there was a party at our Airbnb that like before we came in, and because we there was like trash everywhere and the dumpsters were overflowing, and including the inflatable sex doll that was hanging out of the dumpster. So it was pretty awesome. And so I think somebody had a party, but it wouldn't have been that big a deal. But the showers had like women's hair stuck on the walls,
Oh, yeah.
and which is gross, but I can live with it. But my wife was like not having it. So that was like another drama. But anyway, it worked out good. It wasn't that big a deal, but it was just kind of funny because like it was clear that whoever was there was partying harder than we were with our boys. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, that sounds like a fun trip.
yeah, I think you'd dig it. And actually, as I was seeing all these like recording studios and stuff, I was like, God, if Mike were here, if it was just me and Mike, like we could just go door to door and go check out these places because
Hey,
it's
can I just sit in on a session and
yeah, it's
nerd out?
something, because I mean they're just, I mean they're everywhere. And I couldn't even believe it because like the neighborhood that our Airbnb was in, it's called Berry Hill, and it's very much like a little neighborhood, like little houses and nothing fancy. The condo we were in was a little bit newer, but I mean most of the houses around us are probably from the 50s, 60s, sort of that era, kind of not giant houses, just houses. But like every other house has now been converted into a business, so it's like a salon or whatever. And, so there are a ton of these studios in there, and then, a couple barbecue spots and different food places and stuff. And so, it was a cool neighborhood. Like it'd be an awesome neighborhood to live in.
That's rad. Yeah, I could get down to some recording. I actually just recorded a country artist uh, for, was it 3, 4 weeks ago? A guy named Lane Bowen.
So you're
He's
part
kind
of the
of,
problem.
yeah, I know. It's exactly right. I actually, I was, you got a real good rock vibe. You should do some rock music.
Lean into that, buddy. Lean
Yeah.
into it.
It's like, nah, man, I'm on country. I'm like, all right. Very
Yeah.
talented, though. He's really, really good. Coming out of Idaho, and he's starting to record some originals. I recorded a couple live sets with him, and they turned out really well. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I think what it is that bugs me about country music is there's something performative about it, right? Because they're putting on the twang, they're putting on all that stuff. Like even if you're a good old country boy, like I don't think it's how you'd sing. Like I think if you were singing, like you wouldn't do like the wah, wah, like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Like I just don't think you would. Maybe you would. Like maybe
Yeah.
I'm just an idiot, and I'm sure we will get some comments from the country lovers on this show. But
Yeah.
but I mean, it just
Bring it
seems to me
on.
like you're putting on the act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you see it in all genres. It's not exclusive to country. I mean, like so much of like rap music is really derivative of those who came before them, and so
Of
is country
T-Pain.
music and rock music. Yeah, right. And so, well, yeah, I mean, right. Well, that's a good example, right? I mean, as soon as the what's it called, the little voice
Auto-tune.
modulator deal, yeah, as soon as auto tune hit, like everybody's auto tune.
Yeah.
And as soon as somebody gets a hit record, with like mumble rap, boom, it's mumble rap everywhere. As soon as Lil Pump drops a Gucci Gang, everybody's, repeating the same lyric over and over and over again. It's like, so there's so much derivative work out there that, I mean, but I think that for me then is where it kind of loses some authenticity, right? It doesn't sound like it's you. It sounds like it's you playing a character.
So
And,
like I like the story behind a lot of the older country, like Dust on the Bottle, the George Straits, the classic country. I can get down to that.
well, and to
It's
that extent, like
too,
I don't mind a Willie Nelson. I don't mind
yeah,
Johnny Cash or Waylon Jennings or some of these guys, right? I mean, they all have those kind of old classic country songs, but it's like I know they kind of reeked of authenticity. Those were the people
yeah,
that that is who that person was.
yeah,
And I feel like a lot of people are just like, oh, okay, well, country music sounds like this, so therefore I must sing like country music.
yeah.
Instead of just being a musician and doing whatever you're doing. And, not to degrade the people who are very talented, because obviously they're great, some amazing musicians out there. It's just not my cup of tea, but I think that's what it is.
And I think you're right. I think there's they're kind of overdoing the twang.
Well, and like a perfect example.
when they try to incorporate the pop element into it as well, it's like, no, like, do your thing, but don't like.
Yeah. That's and it's like a lot of pop music, right? As soon as it starts leaning commercial or whatever, people get away from their sort of what made them and they start getting into what's more commercially viable, and it happens to everybody. I was talking to somebody last night about Jimmy Eat World, which is coincidental because you and I had been talking about Jimmy Eat World prior.
Absolutely.
And she was like, I was trying to recall for her a memory that happened around the time that the album with the middle on it came out, right?
Uh-huh.
Which was probably their first like commercially successful album. And but they, so this girl like immediately was shutting down my memory because she's like, oh, I fucking hate that album. She's, like, really? I like Jimmy Eat World from way back, all that stuff. It was one of those moves, right? Where I really liked them from before, and this is very commercial sounding. And so, it's a transition that everybody makes, so it's not like unique to country music, but it's funny. Like an example is, so I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast a lot. It's good time killer. I'll put on a 3-hour show or something while I'm working, and it's great. Right. And part of what I like about it, and I feel like kind of a shill for a lot of his guests, because, after you've listened to somebody talk for 3 hours, like I feel like you start to get kind of a grip on who they are.
Yeah.
Where, maybe in something that's like a 20-minute interview or whatever, it's a little easier to perform. But when you've got to speak for 3 hours, you kind of start to reveal who you are. Right. And so he had this guy, Luke Combs, on the show.
Oh, great.
And, Luke is a country singer, apparently a really popular one, good one.
Yeah.
But as I'm listening to the show, right, he's just kind of a good old boy, like country boy, and I mean, it seems like the coolest guy, salt of the earth, like, he's into hunting and fishing and doing his thing, and he's just a cool guy, right? And so after the end of 3 hours, I'm like, what, I'm gonna give this guy a try because he's a super cool guy. Like, what an awesome dude. And so I put on his new album because he's promoting the new record, and I put on the first track, and the first thing I'm hit with is like steel guitar slide, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I couldn't even get into it, like not even 10 seconds. Well, I was just I'm reminded why I hate this.
I can handle a good guitar slide, like that kind of the tabletop guitar. And there's a lot of good talented musicians in country. It's when they go over the top with the twang, they go over the top with the America, that to me is like not me. I just
it just starts looking like they're putting on an act. Another, I mean, to your point, a good example is we took our kids to the Black Keys, or I guess actually just my youngest went with me and my wife. We went and saw the Black Keys last summer. And I can't for the life of me remember who the name of the group he brought up with him was, but in the middle of their set, they brought up these couple old country boys and, old dudes, cowboy hat, shit kickers, the whole deal. And they started playing, they had, I don't know what they call that little metal loop they put on their finger to make kind of the steel guitar sound. Mm-hmm. But, but it was very country sounding music. Right. And back to my earlier point about, I could probably be wooed by somebody who's an amazing musician. Yeah. These guys shredded. Right. I mean, it was country ish, but I mean, it was like gritty country, like old country sounding to me. And, they weren't real heavy on the twang. They were just singing along, but the music was very country. And, but it didn't turn me off at all. I was like, these guys are amazing. Well,
there's with the slide guitar, you can do some really cool riffs, and you can do you can go to town and rock out with it. And then even like the more mellow stuff, I can get down with it. It's just the over the top, non-authentic. I'm just country because it sells.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, for people who are aware of like the Black Keys sound, right? It's very gritty and grungy and dirty. But I mean, Dan Auerbach is a sick guitar player. And, has created this sound or at least became the master of this sound. And, but when he plays with these guys, like they have this grit to them, this authenticity, these guys. Right. And these are, different dudes he's bringing up or putting out records for or producing or whatever. And so they all have kind of that bit in common. Right. And I think that's what makes it resonate. If they were up there just doing that sort of, bedazzled t-shirt and the Affliction jeans or whatever, like I might have a hard time going with it, and so anyway, so it was kind of interesting. So I mean, the point is, I guess
F-350 with the smokestacks.
Well, to that end, I wish I could remember the dude's name. It might be the Countrywide guy. I don't know his name. I know he's super famous. I should know who he is. But somebody was talking about, I think it was him or one of these other really popular male country singers cruising around Nashville in something like that, like a big F-350 or something, all jacked up or whatever, sound system blaring and lights everywhere and all this stuff. But they said he's just the coolest dude on the planet. Like you'll just run into him at a stoplight and he'll stop and wave and take pictures and whatever, just like, coolest guy. And so, and I guess there's a bunch of those types of dudes that kind of just run Nashville.
Yeah.
That, you just see them in the streets, but like salt of the earth dudes, just good old country boys that happen to do, well, but they just, they're just still that salt of the earth kind of person,
Yeah.
And so it's always good to hear that kind of stuff because you get out into like Hollywood famous and it's just not that way. You got so much drama out there and it's just a different kind of like different way of being famous.
I watched a documentary on Nolan Ryan the other day, and
I've been thinking about watching that. He's like my favorite dude.
Yeah, so like great kind of like backstory, cool to see, like the history. I think I have this rookie card actually.
Oh wow.
But
you should check into that because you could probably retire.
I'll have to look into that. I'll have to go and sort through 1,500 cards and see if I can find them. But anyways, he's a cowboy at heart, and he when he got done with baseball, he runs a ranch, and so he just chill dude, and like I can get down with that kind of stuff and that kind of lifestyle and all that, but it's the fakeness that I just can't deal with.
Yeah, no. So fun fact about Nolan Ryan, which is kind of cool. Back in the olden days when I was a kid, I was really into collecting baseball cards and all that kind of stuff. And back then you could put a baseball card in a self-addressed stamped envelope and mail it to the clubs, and they would get stuff signed for you and send it back.
Oh, that's right.
And so I've got dozens of signatures from players of the time, Ryan Sandberg, Will Clark, all these guys that were the big players of the era, Mark McGwire, all these dudes. And so I sent a couple cards off to Nolan Ryan, actually 3 of them. And the first 2 times I sent him cards, he wouldn't send back the card, or the club wouldn't send back the card. They would send back a little black and white photo that had been signed. Right. And there were a couple that they used to use like these auto pen things, right? So they could sort of, it's a real signature, but it was done by robot, right? So he doesn't really have to sign 500 things. Yeah. And so they used to use these auto pens a lot, but you could kind of tell the ones that were auto pen versus the ones that were authentic. And I had 2 of these black and white cards from 2 different things I'd sent in. So I could look at them side by side and go, okay, well, those are, they're pretty similar. It's probably the same thing. Yeah. And so then just, I sent him a 3rd one. I don't know why I was so compelled to get Nolan Ryan autographs, but I really liked him. My name's Ryan. He's Ryan. It's all, I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, so I sent him a 3rd one. The 3rd one came back. It was like an 8x10 color photo that had been hand signed and looked totally unique to the other 2. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. It's still one of my, I guess, kind of prized possessions, when my boys got into baseball cards and basketball cards, it was like the first thing I pulled out to show them. But nice. What's cool about it, or what's funny about it, is that my signature that I use today is sort of derivative of the Ryan in Nolan Ryan.
I see what you were doing,
because he does this like loopy swoopy thing where it's the R into the Y in one motion. And that's what I do. I picked that up as a kid. And so that's how I started signing my name, but it was like inspired by Nolan Ryan's autograph. So it's
that's right.
Kind of cool. Cause I mean, I was artistic when I was young. I had a lot of different writing styles and stuff. So having a cool signature was a big deal to me. And it's evolved over the years, but even now, like I use my signature as my logo, like if I'm doing anything that's just personal. And so if you go to like, my website, just the ryanrogar.com website, you can see my signature, but you'll see the R goes into the Y. It's kind of a loop off the leg of the R. But that was stolen from old Nolan Ryan back in the olden days. So,
that's cool.
kind of fun. So, but yeah, no, I will say I mentioned Mark McGwire, but I should say that I didn't ever, in fact, get a real Mark McGwire signature. The Athletics were super crappy when it came to this little game. They would send you back a black and white photo, but it had like the signature like photocopied into it, right? Or it was printed. It was a nice
printed into it, so it wasn't signed,
but it wasn't actually signed. Yeah, it was just like a card. Garbage. And so that one sucked because you would sacrifice a Mark McGwire baseball card and send it into them, and they'd send you back some garbage photocopy. So I got one of him and Terry Steinbeck, I think, or Terry Steinbach, I guess it is. But he was
spring training is the place to go to get your signatures. Go down to Phoenix and Mesa and hit them up there. They're more casual down there, so you can actually kind of just hang out. And
Yeah, it makes sense. We did, I think, I'm not sure if we talked about it on the show, but in February I went on a cruise, and one of our stops was in the Dominican Republic, and we thought it was really interesting there because it's kind of, I mean, it's a Hispanic country, they speak Spanish there, and so the impulse is to think that they'd be big soccer fans, but they actually don't do soccer there at all. They just do baseball. And
really,
so from a young age, in other Latin American or Latin countries, it's common that they would be out in the streets playing soccer, but in Dominican Republic, they're out playing stickball or whatever. And so they have like winter leagues and summer leagues and all that stuff. And that's what they were saying too, is, we're starting into spring training at that time, or some of the teams were. And they're like, oh, you can come down for winter ball and you can meet everybody, because this is where, I mean, I don't know the players well enough. I think he mentioned Big Poppy and some of those guys come from there. So, some of the big, star players are coming from there. So,
cool.
yeah, which, speaking of, by the way, not that I'm a major baseball fan, but they are talking about building an MLB stadium here in Salt Lake.
Oh,
Which
really?
is kind of an interesting development. Sounds like it would be an expansion team, so somebody new. And then they're sounding like they're maybe moving the Athletics to Vegas, which would be interesting too. So it'd be a little
That'd
closer.
be
I'm not
interesting.
a big baseball fan, but I will go to a stadium and drink beer. So that's pretty fun.
There
So
is a stadium there already. I think we've been there before. I think I have a
yeah,
picture with Lucas sitting
yeah,
on my shoulders watching a game there.
that is the
The
second to last
bees, the
baseball game I've
bees.
been to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was forever ago, but yeah, that's the Bees, the minor league team, and it sounds like they would move and play at this new stadium that they would build, and I don't know if they'd tear that one down or what. It's kind of a cool stadium, so I hope not,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah. So it sounds interesting. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Also, in the spirit of all this hockey talk, the guy that owns the Jazz and owns Real Salt Lake is apparently talking to NHL teams too. So
Huh.
it could become a real sports hub here in Salt
I
Lake. So it might be
think I
interesting.
think NHL is kind of taken off. I mean, the Seattle just got a team. They're
And their
popping up
team's
all over
killing
the
it, by the
place.
way.
Yeah, they're my buddy's the sound guy for him. So if there's ever a time that you're in Seattle and you want to, it literally he just texted me that ding was him.
Oh, how funny. Yeah, no, it's funny because
Shout out
so
David.
yeah, my youngest kid is a huge Seahawks fan. And
Hmm.
so my assumption would be if he was going to pick an NHL team, he'd have picked the Seattle team. And the Kraken,
The
I guess, are doing
Kraken.
pretty well. They've got
Yeah.
into the playoffs or something. And I guess they're doing great. I don't know. But because I think they're only 1 or 2 years old.
Yeah.
And but they seem to be killing it. But no, his heart belongs in Nashville after his weekend or
You
game at the
took him to the
Preds. So
wrong first game. That's the
yeah.
thing.
So, well, it certainly didn't take him to a winner. Although I will say they were in the playoff hunt then, and they have since been eliminated. But they played like 3 or 4 games beyond where I think anybody thought they would. So maybe next year they'll be a contender.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, we'll see. It was a lot of fun though. So cool. Well, I guess then let's talk about what you're up to. You've got a couple shows coming up here in the big city.
Yeah, I'm heading to Seattle right after we're done talking for the most part. I have 2 gigs this weekend at Sweet Nightclub in Bellevue, Friday and Saturday. If you won't see this in time, but um, should be a fun weekend. Going up to see some friends, gonna get some dental work done while I'm there.
Good times. Everybody knows Seattle is the spot for dental work.
No, I just have a homie that hooks it up. So shout out to Todd. He's a friend from high school. He's actually um so when I started DJing back in '96, he was my roadie. He would come help set up and tear down. And
When I was going to say, didn't he DJ a little bit too? I have like a vague recollection of maybe making a DJ logo for him at some point.
yeah,
I mean, I don't think
doctor
he was doing it as
doc
a professional, but he was, just
yeah,
take a gig here and there.
yeah, he still does just for fun. He does like a random school dance here and there, just to bust equipment out. I think his nieces and nephews are actually using it more than he is.
Oh, that's
One of
funny.
his family members, his brother, all his kids play in a band together, and they're actually pretty good. So they use his PA for band rehearsal and for doing shows, and one of them is kind of DJing as well. So it's getting passed down the lineage.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, it's funny. It's weird to think of that, but Yeah.
Well, no, it's funny too. I mentioned a little bit ago that you and I had been talking about Jimmy Eat World. We were sort of reminiscing on back in 2008. You were a big part of bringing them into Pocatello, along with Paramore, which was the day I fell in love with Haley Williams. And but we were talking about that show the other day, and then just sort of went down this trip on memory lane with the same person I was talking to about Jimmy Eat World. That's a client of mine, but she's a big music fan and everything. So we always talk music when we get together. But we were talking about sort of just all the Phoenix bands we used to work with. I mean, Jimmy Eat World being from down there too, but the mess of the bands that we were down there with, and
there's probably 20 or 30 of them.
Yeah, it's been really, I mean, it's cool. And when I have those talks or when I sit and think about all that stuff, I really start to miss working in the business. Right. And so I'm jealous of you, because at least you're getting to kind of touch it a little more and actually actively getting more into it lately. So
well, I've been doing it a lot more lately, mainly just trying to build a portfolio of work. There's a lot of really talented musicians here in the area. We started this open mic thing about a year ago. And every now and then we do these showcases where we have open mic for the first hour or two, and then the last hour is, instead of a 15-minute set, they get the full hour. And so the bands that stand out that are really good, I'll bring some lights in, and then I'll multi-track record them, mix it down, and film it at the same time, so I can do a clean audio mix down, and then overlay the video and have like professionally recorded content to give them, just as a, hey, thanks for doing the showcase. And it's kind of opened some doors. I booked some actual engineering gigs where the pay's not great, but it's, they're actually paying me to go and do that, which is cool. It's not the kind of money I make when I'm doing weddings and doing that kind of stuff, but it's paid practice. It's kind of like when I go DJ at a club, it's not wedding money, but it's paid practice. So it's kind of the same thing. And it's nice to, get the reps in, just to be ready for, down the road.
Well, it's super cool too. And I mean, we've talked about it before on the show, but I mean, you have like some actual, formal education around audio engineering. And so, I mean, it's exciting to see that you actually get to use it, right? Because I mean, you just, unless you stay in that business, right? Unless you're working around those people, even as a DJ or whatever, the skills are totally diffent. And so, so what you're doing.
So it's like miking techniques for drum kits. It's you got up to 30 inputs. We've had 24 at one point that we're all recording at the same time, and managing the EQ and compression on each channel, and sending reverb and delay and all sorts of stuff to vocals. And you have to deal with feedback issues. Like if there's one guitar in particular that I have to EQ every time he gets on, because it just feeds back really bad. So you have to notch it in certain frequencies just to avoid that feedback issue. And there's a lot more going on in the live sound world than two channels on a DJ mixer. But I mean, that's completely, I mean, it's like comparing a piano to a saxophone. They're two different instruments, two different things. So
well, yeah, I just think it's like a lot of people might make the comparison or just go, oh, well, you're working in audio, it's kind of audio, it's all kind of the same. But yeah, I mean, it's a layer of complexity, and it's one of those things. It's like anything, right? I've taken recently to trying to draw more regularly, and and on paper, and trying to practice some fundamental stuff and all these things, because I've noticed that, like, I used to draw a lot, like all the time, like especially as a kid. I mean, that's what I did day in and day out, right? Yeah. And I've noticed that like my wrist dexterity is gone. Like if I sit and try and draw now, it's like I'm exhausted in like 5 minutes.
Arthritis just kicking in.
Yeah. And so, and I just noticed I wasn't able to reproduce things in my head as easily as I used to be able to, and it's like anything, like audio engineering or any other skill. It's just like, if you don't use it, you can lose it. Right. And I always kind of took it for granted because I was always sort of artistic and all that. But I mean, I got into computers pretty young, and, so I really transitioned from physical art to digital stuff, and, never really looked back. Right. And so it was kind of, less important to me to do much more beyond, maybe sketching or whatever for a concept and then just moving right into the computer. And so now I'm trying to do it the other way around. I'm really interested in getting into doing some actual fine art type stuff, like some painting and things. And I've talked about it before on the show and still not started for anybody keeping track. But I have a real knack for buying materials and never starting.
Yeah.
Right. And if I'm armchair analyzing that, I think it's probably like a fear of failure kind of thing. It's like I don't want to get into it and screw it up or do poorly, right? I want to be good at it because I've always been artistic, even though I've never really been a painter.
Yeah.
And so the expectation isn't really there. Nobody's putting this pressure on me but myself. But I think that that's what I do. And because I mean, like if you go into my little art studio that I've put together here, I mean, it's wall to wall with paint and brushes and easels and paint, canvases and all these things, and not one scrap of paint laid out anywhere.
So what you need to do is go to Goodwill and find old paintings like of a landscape or something, and then do what, like I see it on Instagram all the time, but they'll like do the Star Wars walking over the mountain, or like Street Fighter like blowing up the mountain with this.
Yeah. No, I've seen those too. There's a dude at the Salt Lake farmers market that would always bring those kind of paintings out. They're awesome. Yeah. And but I mean, all I need is practice, right? I just need to be doing it. Luckily, I have an artistic inclination, so I could probably be decent at it if I was doing it. But yeah, I bought the easel, but it's still in the box. Like I haven't, built these. And I bought the paint and I bought the brushes, but I've never painted anything. Right. Yeah. And so there's sort of this barrier that I've got to try and fight through. So I'm starting with drawing and I'm focusing on things that I'm not very good at or don't. I'm
gonna commission you for painting right now.
Well, you'll get one of the original derbies.
Yeah, I'll give you $100 for your first painting.
Ooh,
there you go.
I like it.
Now you're a pro.
Yep, I love it. I am a paid painter. Yeah, no, I love it. It's like when I got my first 2-cent royalty check for writing an article. And I was all of a sudden a paid writer.
Hell yeah.
It's kind of like that, So,
you got your 2 cents worth.
Yep. Hell yeah, literally. Yeah, I got paid for my 2 cents. Cool. So what else is going on? Anything else we got to cover while we're just bullshitting? Or
I dropped it earlier. I no longer work at the radio station.
Oh yeah.
That's last time we did this, I was like all hyped, like, hey, I got a job. Yay. And now it's that lasted all of a month and a half, and we had a conflict of interest with management, and I put my 2 weeks in and moved on.
So, yeah. Well, it's interesting to me. I mean, I don't know how deep into it you are comfortable going. But I think
I won't drop names or anything, but
the thing I want to focus on is I think that there's kind of a learning opportunity there, or I think it might be something that most people aren't brave enough to do, because what you did is you took a real stance on a specific thing, and I'll let you tell it because it's your story. But I think that what's so cool about the story is you really said, this is my principle and I'm going to stand behind it. And I think we live in a world today where people don't really do that. Where it's like, okay, well, but they're going to pay good, so I'll look the other way, or I can get some kind of status.
They weren't paying that
good. Well, it probably made it easier to walk away with it. We're paying very good, but still, I'm applauding you for your, saying this is my stance on that, and if you're not willing to meet me there, I'm not going to put you on that.
Yeah, I was making right around $40K, which was good money for not having a job and going into a job. The benefits were good, so that was nice. I was really stoked about having medical, and I went and got some tests done and x-rays and all that fun stuff, and so that was cool. But
well, and yeah, for freelancers or people wondering why that's a big deal, I mean, yeah, if you spend a lot of time as a freelancer or self-employed, those things aren't always rights. They're kind of privileges. So yeah. So getting those things, you have to make a decision whether you're going to pay a bill or go see the doctor. So
that was like a main concern of mine, was like, I just got benefits, and there were a couple of things that were kind of iffy with my health that I wanted to get checked out, and quitting or like putting my 2 weeks in was kind of sketch, because I was like, what if it comes back bad? And I it kind of came to a head where I had to either say, no, I'm done, or say, okay to do it. Let me just tell you what happened. they wanted me to do a mix show. They wanted me to do 4 hours a week of DJing, like scratching and mixing and creating content for the radio station. And I was like, hell yeah, let's do that. That's awesome. I've done it for other stations. You can hear a bunch of it on my website. You can go and listen to it.
And by the way, back in the olden days when I actually listened to this radio station, this thing they were asking you to do was my favorite thing they did.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a lot of people that were hyped and stoked about it. And I was hyped and stoked about it. I was super excited to be a part of it and be kind of like the guy in the local area that was doing it, because no one else is kind of on the caliber that I am. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but there's not any real DJ, club style DJs in the area.
Well, and so you can toot your horn a little bit. I mean, you're experienced, and most radio stations don't have that kind of talent in house, right? So yeah. I mean, it would be something that wouldn't be available to most places.
Yeah, and they were really stoked about it. Upper management had some issues with what they wanted me to do. Is they wanted me to record these mixes, brand it for the station, but I couldn't put I couldn't say it was recorded by DJ Ontic. It couldn't be recorded by Mike Murray, the name I was using for the radio station.
Oh crap, that's a big reveal, dude. You're like the Masked Singer. You just let everybody know who Mike Murray was.
Yeah, well, I'm Mike Murray in another life. But the fact that I couldn't tag my work was a huge red flag for me, and it screamed to me that they wanted me to just produce content for them, and then once they got a quota or a certain amount, they were going to let me go or something. It's like the lack of respect and the lack of ownership on the mixes was a big red flag for me. And
well, and as I recall, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you brought this up early on too, and they seem to be on board. Because I think you kind of laid out for them that you were hoping to be able to use your name and develop sort of a personal brand in the area, that I'm DJ Ontic of or whatever, they were calling the station you were on. And, was the move, right? Like, I mean, part of it was use my name and, let me take credit for the things that I do. That isn't just standard radio, just playing the rotation.
So like, they didn't want me using DJ Ontic because it was, I have content on my website that's not PG, and they're a PG, it's radio, and then they're in a very religious area, so it's extra PG radio. And so that was actually a problem as well, because like a lot of the radio edits that I've had and used in Seattle, I couldn't play because there was content in there that they weren't okay with. So I was going in and making radio friendly edits, like super clean edits. So that was on top of making the mix, making sure that everything was radio friendly and up to their standards was a lot of extra work. And I was down to take on that extra work. It's just, and I was even doing it in off hours at home. Like I'd come home from an 8-hour day, spend 2 hours making a mix while I was cooking dinner, and it's like I was down to go that extra mile. But when they said I couldn't brand my stuff with Mike Murray even, and Mike Murray is related to them, that was the name that was I was using on their channel and their station. And when they said I couldn't tag it, I was like, no, that's kind of where I put my foot in the line. And we went back and forth. And, I was like, I finally agreed. I was like, I'll give you unbranded content, but I'm going to post it on my website saying that I made it. So like, I'm going to share this mix on my website and, create a Mike Murray tag in the DJ Ontic page, and when the GM came back and said no to that, that's when I was like, thanks for the opportunity, but I can't work here. So
yeah. And you and I have talked about it, and I mean, we both have stances, I think, sort of as creative people or people who produce creative content, like, ownership is a big piece of it. And I understand even, there's my equivalent would have been doing work in agency, right? I didn't get to put my name on everything, right? It just was work done by agency.
I think there's a difference between like you create a logo for someone else, it's their logo. It's,
right. Well, but what I was going to get to is that basically, you know, but the difference would be if I worked for an agency and then I produced one of these paintings that I'm yet to paint.
Yeah,
that would be my painting. That wouldn't be client work. That wouldn't be something
that would be asking,
you know,
like a photographer, you know, like not to copyright their stuff, or
right.
you to not sign the painting when you're done.
Yeah. I mean, you make a movie and Hugh Jackman is in the credits, right? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, the people get credit for the work they do and, you know, their creative contributions. And I understand that maybe part of, you know, coming on the air, being on a radio station is agreeing to giving up some of your content. But it seemed to me, at least with this particular program and this thing that they were trying to have you put together, like it's kind of a win-win for everybody, right? I mean, it's a win for you in that you get to do this kind of work and play it out to their audience and, you know, hopefully get some good feedback on that stuff. And then for them, they have leveled up and they're putting out content that's compelling and drives people to listen to their ads and everything else. And, you know, and then in terms of the other component of their business, which is, you know, remotes and external stuff, you know, if you're the big name in the market and they can basically pimp you out to these different, you know, corporate events and things like that, because you're Mike Murray of this radio station, you know, it's, you know, I mean, for me, I almost can't see the problem. Now I understand them saying, okay, well, you know, you get to the website and there's some non-PG stuff, but I don't know. I don't feel like that's, you know, a great foot to stand on. I mean, unless there's something early on about that, but I mean,
No,
even at that, your music is still popular music. I mean, you know, there might be some language in it or whatever, but it's the same music they play.
well,
And you know,
it's the same. So like, I would have to go through and edit everything. It's a whole nother layer of micro management of, you know, like content and everything. Like if it's even iffy, I would have had to edit it, which is, you know, it's fine. It's extra work. It is what it is. But they were also kind of, you know, like that was the last thing. It was like, I'm not going to release this if I can't brand it, you know, one way or another, say that it's my mix kind of thing. But they were also, I mean, like, it was 9 to 6 instead of 9 to 5. Oh, but you get an hour lunch break. And what am I going to do for an hour? You know, when I have a 30-minute commute, I'm not going to go home, you know? And so, and then it went from, I'm doing an afternoon show to doing an afternoon show and voice tracking a morning show on another one, and then doing voiceovers for commercials and then imaging for the station. And then so like my workload was going through the roof. I was doing remotes nonstop. Like it was just, I was 55, 60 hours a week. And they were saying that since I'm salary, I can't, you know, there's nothing I can do about
you're sort of beholden to working.
Yeah. And so it's like, I'm happy for the opportunity. I met some really great people that work there. Josh, you know, like homie, like Victor, homie, like there's a bunch of cool people there, but I couldn't deal with upper management. And there was actually a big lack of respect there as well, to the point of where the GM would walk down the hallway, say hello to everyone else, and walk right by me and ignore me. And I would say hello to him, and he would just cold shoulder me. And that kind of attitude and that kind of, I'm holier than thou, I'm the big wig kind of mentality, I can't put up with it, you know. And so I could see that causing a problem down the road, on top of the issues that he wasn't letting me tag the content. And so rather than,
well, and it's so funny. I mean, I think that there's kind of an exploitative nature of radio in general, not to single these guys out, but I think that this is a common thing from other radio DJs and stuff we talked about that have done radio. Yeah. And Zach is a good one. I can't remember his last name if you want to shout him out.
Wilson.
That's right. And he came on actually to talk about computer programming, but he was, you know, at a lot of
he was an ex-radio exec from Nashville. Or Austin, I think, but he used to manage 9 stations or 10 stations. Yeah. And he was the role of this guy that was being a jerk to me. And there's a big difference between the two, I think. Like, I
Well, it's
think
one of those things I've never understood is when you abuse your talent, right? Because basically there is no show without talent. There is no radio station without the talent. There is no, anything, agency without the artists, right? I mean, like you can't do your thing without those people. But I think that radio has got this weird culture attached to it that's old, and they've never quite turned around on it. Like it's always stayed kind of this exploitative thing where it's like, we're actually doing you a favor, man. You get to be on our airwaves, and just think of all the people that get to listen to you, and you're going to be, neighborhood famous and all this stuff. It's like, so instead of it just being treated like a job, they treat it like they're doing you a favor, right? Like,
yeah.
so I don't have to pay you as much money because, like, look at what you're getting. You get to do this. You're going to be on the air. You're going to be the coolest guy in town, instead they should be focusing on their business practices and all that stuff. I mean, radio is a dying thing. Like, I mean, they're having to do more with less all the time. And I mean,
there's a reason that they were focusing on TikTok and they're focusing on YouTube content and stuff like that.
But to that end, what a deal to find a guy like you that can wear 1,000 hats, that can edit your own TikToks, who can edit your own this and that.
Speaking of which, one of my TikToks went viral and got over 1 million plays for them. So it's like,
yeah, and that's the point, right? Well, and that's the thing, is you brought a lot of skills to the table that, I mean, obviously their prerogative to hire or not hire, or keep or not keep, or whatever. But it's like, feels like if you have half a brain in you go, okay, well, we're working in a business that has to run lean. We have to do the most with the least. We have to get the furthest with the, least amount of money. And we're fighting and scrapping for every ad dollar we can get. And I've got this guy that can do everything. Like, he's good on the air. He's good with the people. He's good. He understands music. He knows how to edit. He, can create social content. He can do X, Y, and Z. It's like, if you're bootstrapping and you're really trying to run a business lean, a guy like that seems to me like a real mitzvah, like, I mean, that's the kind of thing you're looking for, is somebody like that.
Yeah.
Because nowadays you get so many specialists, right? Maybe somebody that's great on the air, but they don't know how to edit anything. Or maybe they, aren't good with people, but they're great talent or something, I mean, like, there's all these different things. And to find somebody that's, so many things in one, a real Swiss Army knife, seems to me like a gift.
It made me like wonder. It's like there's people there that all they do is show up and do the on-air stuff. And I had the mix show, the voice tracking, the imaging, the everything. And it's like, like, come on, man. Like, I'm going way above and beyond, and you won't even just let me tag my music. Like, that's all I want. I just want 2 seconds to say DJ Ontic mix or Mike Murray mix, and the funny thing is we actually had the imaging made. And when I had recorded 16 or 18 mixes right around there. We're ready to go for backlog to launch, because we were really close to launching. And I started editing them to add the imaging for the station, like, you're in the mix with, whatever. And they heard Mike Murray, like, mixing live, Mike Murray, whatever, that kind of thing. Then they came in and said, hey, we need you to take all those out. And I was like, what? And then in that instant, I knew that the job was pretty much done, was because, like,
well, and Flip Micah, this particular show that you're talking about was going to be sort of a nightclub over the radio kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that vibe, like, if you listen to those kind of broadcasts anywhere else, I mean, it's like, you got to come on every 15 minutes with that stupid horn, that wah, 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 and you got to drop, do a drop and put a little sting in there, like, I mean, this is just how that genre works, so I mean, it's clear that they didn't really care about that. And when they'd done this show years ago, I mean, I think they just bought a tape, basically.
Yeah. Well, there's people out there that will make them unbranded and that do a good job. But what they do with those is they have syndicated ads that are built into the mix. So, like, the mix will end 2 minutes early, and there'll be 2 nationwide spots that are paid for to be into that kind of thing. And so, for them to get that, they have to agree to have those ads on them, and they don't want to do that. Right. And so they wanted to own it outright, and I wasn't willing to create unbranded content and just give it to them. And so I kind of said no to that.
Well, if nothing else, I think, I mean, I'm glad you had the ability to walk away, because I mean, for people who don't have the ability to go do something else, I mean, that could be a lot of money, even though, it was probably underpaying, for the real value of
It
you.
was
I
really
mean,
nice to have a steady paycheck, man. It was
yeah,
like it was great.
well,
And to be honest with you, I probably should have stayed and kept the job and kept the paycheck and kept the stability, but I don't operate that way. It's I've always been self-employed. I've always kind of done my own thing. And granted, it's nice and it's good to have that. I couldn't get past the unbranded content. I just couldn't do it.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
I actually
Well,
this morning I had you're gonna laugh at this. This morning I had a job interview. You want to guess what it was for?
if it's country music, I'm going to just end the show right now.
No. Um it's working as a park ranger in Washington.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Well, it's so like I do all my weddings in Chelan
Yeah.
and they're on Saturdays. And I'm pretty much just hanging out there, and they have a seasonal position in Lake Chelan as a park ranger.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
From May until September, and so it's literally the time that I'm going to be there. So I'll get by. It's just I don't, yeah.
No, it's funny. You can use that as an opportunity to get in like crazy shape, though. We were in Moab a year ago or a couple of years ago, and we decided to walk up to the Delicate Arch. So people who don't know what the Delicate Arch is, it's the big thing that Utah is famous for, the big stone arch that you see on the license plates and all that kind of stuff. And it's really cool. But the walk to it, I mean, I think it's only like a mile and a half or something, but it's like a mile and a half straight up a mountain. Right? So I mean, it doesn't sound like it's very far, but it's far.
That's did you remember when I hiked Eleanor and that lady was trying to go up there with the goats and her kid and their dog?
Yeah, it's exactly that, right? And so it's the craziest thing. But we ran into a park ranger up there, right? And to be more specific, we ran into him about 8 times in the time it took us to get to the top. He hiked it up and back and up and back and up and back.
Wow.
And because basically people just collapse on the rocks there, so they have to have people there to protect them or to, catch an injury or whatever. Yeah. And so this guy, I can't remember what he said. He walks that thing like 30 times a day or something.
Wow.
And, and for all of us, we're all huffing and puffing and stopping every 20 feet to take a break and, all this stuff. And he's just like hoofing right along, So, I mean, you get a gig like that one where you got a nice little mountain trail to hike and spend your whole day hiking.
I tell you what, my get back in shape for wedding season kind of thing is landscaping.
Oh, yeah,
I started another big rock wall project, and I'm extending the flagstone. And
nice.
I've been using the shovel pretty heavy for the last 2 weeks.
I was gonna say, if you want to come down here and work for free, and maybe even finance some of the shit we have to put into our yard, I'd be stoked to have you come to our landscaping. We got that German Shepherd puppy, and she has dug holes in the backyard that are big enough for her to put her whole body in.
Wow.
And I say puppy, but she's like 100 pounds now. Yeah. And so this is a big dog, and she can literally put her whole body in these holes. And I mean, just has destroyed our yard. And so like we had grand aspirations of doing some like remodeling in the house this year and stuff like that. But I think whatever money we can get together, we're going to end up dumping in the backyard, because it's just like
fill all the holes with rocks.
Yeah, everything is getting filled with rock. We're covering everything with concrete, and it'll just be that. Because it's impossible to stay ahead of her. She's young and inspired. Yeah. So anyway, well, cool. All right. Well, we've been at this about an hour. I guess we better cut her off. But anything else before we get out of here, Mike?
No, I think I'm good. I think we covered it.
All right, cool. Well, hey, nice to have a visit. And it's been a minute since we got to do this, so that was cool. And thanks to everybody who tunes in the show all the time. Obviously, support the show. Hit us up at eggscast.com. We're on all the socials, so you can follow us there. We'll obviously have show notes or links and everything in the show notes, so feel free to get involved in the conversation. Shoot us notes, guest suggestions, all that kind of stuff. We're always open to feedback. And I think that's it.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. And thanks for doing it this week and every week. And see you guys next time.